Okay, for this recording, we'll be looking at an overview of the adaptive immune system. The adaptive immune system is also known as the specific immune system. All right, so the adaptive immune system is a later response compared to the innate immune system because the adaptive immune system, the mechanism of the cells involved are usually not that active, right? They require some time to be activated. Okay, so if the innate immune response, the early response, is able to clear the infection, then the adaptive immune system would not have to be triggered. Okay, but of course, if the pathogens are able to evade the innate immune system, then the adaptive immune system would kick in to clear the pathogens. All right, so the key characteristics of the adaptive immune system that set it apart from the innate immune systems, besides being activated later, is also that it is highly specific, because the cells of the adaptive immune systems have receptors that are highly specific. So this is different from the innate immune system, where these immune cells have receptors that broadly recognize common antigens, right, found on most pathogens. For the adaptive immune system, different cells would have a slightly different receptor that recognize different epitopes of different antigens on different pathogens. All right, so each cell in the adaptive immune system is highly specific to its own epitope. Therefore, the adaptive immune system is highly specific, and also there is the immunological memory that is involved in the adaptive immune system for subsequent encounters of the same pathogen, right? The immune response from the adaptive immune system would be stronger and faster and last longer. All right, so there is a difference for the second encounter, for the third encounter of the same pathogen, which is not seen in the innate immune system, because as we have looked at last lecture, right, the innate immune system treats every encounter, even of the same pathogen, as if it is the first time. Right? So there's no memory of a pathogen that has been encountered before. Okay, so there are two arms of the adaptive immune system. We have the humoral immunity, right, that is involving the antibodies produced by B cells, and also the cell-mediated immunity that involves the T cells. So we have two types of T cells, helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells. We will look at what they do later when we look at the cells of the adaptive immune system. Okay, so again, a diagram just to show, right, the two arms of the adaptive immune system. Okay, so the B cells, right, are cells that will then go on to develop or differentiate into plasma cells that will secrete or release antibodies. Okay, so when we say plasma cells, even though the word plasma cells doesn't have the word B in it, right, but you know that actually plasma cells are B cells, or they used to be B cells, or they are B cells. Shouldn't say used to be, they are B cells. But once they have gain the function to secrete antibodies, we call them plasma cells. All right. Then we have the two types of T cells here: the helper T cells and the cytotoxic T cells. Okay. So note that they have different cell surface proteins, right? But we'll focus on it a bit more when we look at the cells of the adaptive immune system. All right. So anyway, right, both the B cells and the T cells have very specific receptors, right, for specific epitopes of specific antigens on specific pathogens. Okay, so I'll keep using the word specific because it's highly specific. All right, so I think we have mentioned this before already. Let's move on to the adaptive immune system again, right? being usually not very active, okay, but they requires activation. And in the previous recording, we have looked at how the activation comes about, right? And that is via the presentation of antigens by the antigen presenting cells. Okay, so the B cells or T cells becomes activated when they bind to the antigens, right? And especially for the T cells, the helper T cells in particular, right? They would be activated when they bind to the antigens presented by the antigen presenting cells, right? On their cell surface on their cell surface via the MHC class 2 proteins or molecules. Okay, so when the receptors of the cells, right, binds to these antigens, then the cells becomes activated to carry out their individual functions. Okay, so the activation is requiring the binding of antigens to receptors, right? So then that would bring about a whole set of cell signaling cascade, which results in the activation of the cells. Okay, so you have done all this before in terms of cell signaling. Okay, so that would be a quick overview, right? Next, we'll be looking at the cells of the